I had a near-death experience when I gave birth to my daughter, my oldest daughter. I had a, it was called placenta previa, where my placenta actually burst before giving birth. And basically, I bled to death. I was my heart stopped for 2 minutes and 23 seconds. And I realized I was having an out-of-body experience or near-death experience when I was up in, I guess in the emergency, the operating room. I was up in the room, and I was looking down, and it was a small room, and I was looking down, and I saw these doctors working around this person. And I was thinking, who is this person? And I kind of looked around, and I noticed it was me. But then I also noticed that the operating room was very small. And I was thinking, God, this is really small operating room. People could barely fit in there. And then at that time, I saw out, to my left, I saw these little dots of light, which I was told were molecules of light. The molecules of light are the souls of the people who have passed. That makes up the light that everyone talks about. I didn't go through a tunnel, but I did go toward the light. And when I went toward the light, I was met by a young girl who was my spiritual guide. And this is the girl that I had dreams about all through my childhood. I had dreams of playing with her, and my mom would tell me that I had an imaginary friend. Well, I remembered my friend, but to me she wasn't imaginary, she was real. I could see her, talk to her, and play with her. And from there, we went to walking through this little, I think it was like a meadow, little hill. And I met this woman who was in Indian garb, like American Indian, older woman. And she told me that she was my great-grandmother. She was up on the hilly knolls, up on the hill. I wanted to go toward her because she was walking toward me, but she stopped. And she said I couldn't meet her. That was as far as I could go because I had not developed enough or was not spiritual enough to go any further. And she couldn't come down because she had already reached that plateau where she was up in a higher plane. Then from there we went to, I remember I wanted to see my grandmother because she told me that my grandmother, she had never met my grandmother because she died when she gave birth to my grandmother. And of course my mom never met her. And I was worried about my grandmother because my uncle had died 2 months prior to that. I went to my grandmother's house, went to my grandmother's house, and I saw my uncle there walking around her house. But then at that moment, I remember, wait, my grandmother's at my house, my mom's house. And I talked to my uncle, and he said he was waiting for my grandmother. And it kind of scared me because he was already dead. I knew he was dead. So from there, I talked to my spiritual guide who was explaining life here on earth and how we have to come back many times until we're one with God, our God, whomever our God is, our superior being. And at that moment, I realized, wow, I could feel the I don't know if it was the love or the spirit, but I could feel the sense of being, a happiness, the love of a superior being. I knew at that moment there was a God, because I really never believed it. And I was raised Catholic, but I really never believed the whole concept of a God. Let me tell you, there is a superior being, can be your God, anyone else's God, as long as you know that there's a superior being. I felt it, I know it. From there we went to, the whole sequence would take me a long time, so I'm just going to give you the high points about it. Went to this area where there were a lot of people looking down, I'd say like in a cloud. There was a lot of people walking back and forth. But it's an open area. But it was a special place where people would look down, and they were choosing the families they wanted to be born to. My spirit guide explained to me that when you're born, you choose the family where you're going to learn the most, spiritually or morally. You go to a family, if you've been cruel to someone, and intentionally cruel, it doesn't matter if you do it unintentionally, it's if you're intending to hurt someone, then you have to experience that hurt so you'll understand what it is. If you do it unintentionally, it's not held against you, I could say. But you choose a family that's going to learn the most. And I do believe that. I do believe that, when you have a child, or when relatives have a child, you could feel that instant connection. Okay, from there we went, she also explained to me, when you have karma, a lot of people, not karma, but deja vu, when you have deja vu, there's some people that have it more than others. If you've ever experienced, you've been there before, you've done that, you've seen this person before. It's because at that moment in your prior life, you've made a wrong decision. So you get deja vu because you get the opportunity in this life to correct what you did wrong. Maybe you asked the wrong question, you went to the right when you should have gone to the left, but you have that opportunity to correct that deja vu. If you don't, when you come back in your next life, you go through it again. We go through that time after time, life after life, until we become one with God, our God. I learned that we're on this earth, our world, but we're not the only place. We're not the only ones that have souls. And I could remember that the instant that I remembered that I was dead, I thought, wow, this is really, wow, this is really cool. Now I understand what the soul is. The soul is your mind, your thoughts, your memories. You have all these memories. It's just, when you're thinking right now, your mind, you're thinking, okay, I have this, you remember your relatives. Well, you remember lives past. All the lives you've lived, you remember. That's your soul. It's not your body, it's not your brain. That's your soul, is your memories, your experiences in all your lives. I remember just thinking, wow, that's really amazing. So as I went through all my journeys, I could say, I remember when I started walking, I can remember that the blades of grass were waving. And it's like everything has, I don't want to say feelings, but everything has a consciousness. Even everything that grows has a consciousness. That's what I was told. You may see a tree and think, oh, it's just a tree. No, that tree is here for a purpose. That tree has its own feelings or identity. Okay, so everything here that we see that lives has a consciousness. I was also told that everything that lives on earth dies. It can be from 1 minute to the next or 1 second to the next. The babies that are stillborn, because they had the souls that chose that family hadn't made that connection or that commitment to be born. There's children that are miscarried. They have their souls, but just for some reason it was not their time to be here on this earth, in this world. There's other worlds. And at the decision, I saw my mother talking to a priest, asking the priest to give me my last rites. She didn't know I was already dead. And I heard the conversation where she said, please, she's a good girl, Just give her last rites, pray for her. And the priest told my mom, don't worry, she's going to be okay. And he walked into, I guess, toward the operating area.
Where was your mother?
In the waiting room. She was in the waiting room waiting because she knew I was in surgery. She's the one that went with me to the hospital in the beginning. When I went through all these journeys, I really wasn't asked, do you want to stay or you want to go? But I knew I had to make that decision then. And I looked and I saw my boys. I had two boys, probably like 4 and 2 years old. And I saw them lying in the bed, and I knew at that instant I couldn't leave them. But the funny thing about it is I didn't see my daughter. I didn't see my daughter when she had just been born. I didn't see her. But I knew I wasn't going to leave my sons. And in that second, I felt this heavy weight on my chest, on my body. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is what gravity is. Gravity holds you. It weighs you down. That's what everyone was talking about, gravity. I'm feeling it. And then I had a very strong pain in my chest. And I heard the doctor, one of the doctors say, breathe, damn it, breathe. More exciting than that. And then I heard another doctor said, oh my God, she's back. Thank you, Jesus, she's back. And then after that, I don't remember anything until I woke up.
Now, when you were out, you heard your mother saying something to the priest. Didn't you also see something about your husband or ex-husband?
I saw him on the couch. He was knocked out. He was drunk, passed out on the couch. And I was thinking at that time, oh, great. He's here knocked out, drunk as a skunk, they say, and I'm here dead, and he doesn't even know it. When I came back, my mother visited me. I talked to my mother, and I told her, what happened, and she was really, like, in shock. And I said, yeah, Mario was at home asleep, and he didn't even know I was dead. He was just, sleeping, and he didn't even know till later on that day that I even had the baby. I talked to my mom, and, when she went home that day, she told me that yes, because I was still in the hospital. She told me yes, he was on the couch drunk, and my two boys were on the bed. And I even told her, I said, that you can't find Mario, that was the baby. Can't find Mario because he's under the blankets. And she said, yeah, that's what happened. She couldn't find him. She thought that my ex-husband took him. Or she looked in the living room, she looked in the room, and then she moved the blankets, and she saw him there. So it's...
So you saw your husband on the couch, had no way of knowing that he was there, but it turns out he actually was. You didn't see the baby. It turns out the baby was under the covers. And you heard your mother talking to the priest, and it wasn't something you would expect that she would say, right? Because didn't...
No, I didn't think my mom would... My mother wasn't a very religious woman, and she's tried all different religions, Baptist, Protestant, Catholicism, newborn Christians. She always was on her search. She really didn't make a commitment to any one religion. So when I saw the priest there, even though I was on the other side, it surprised me that she would go that far. I didn't know she realized that I was that sick, because to me, I was okay. I was okay. I was there. I was seeing everything. I knew I was okay. And I don't know if I thought, okay, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to stay dead. I'm going to come back. But it just surprised me that she would bring a priest. And when I talked to her and I told her, why did you bring the priest? And she looked at me and she said, how did you know that? And I said, because I saw you guys. I saw you guys talking. And she was just like in amazement and just, yeah.
She was amazed because she was in a different room. You had no way of seeing or knowing that the priest was there. Right?
Because when I told her the first time, she said, oh, yeah, well, what did I say? I said, you asked the priest to give me my last rites, that I was a good girl. And she just, looked like, she didn't believe it, but then if I was there and I told her what she said, she had to believe it. And then after that experience, when I was, became well and had my children, I was more in tune to my psychic world, to the universe, I guess. And I have to say, this was in May. My grandmother died in October. And I told my mother that my uncle was going to take her. And my mom, after telling her about the priest and telling her what all the other things that went on, she started preparing for my grandmother's funeral. And my aunts, I remember when my grandmother did die, my aunt came from Texas and said my mother killed her, because if she didn't kill her, why was she preparing for her funeral? Well, it's because I told her that my uncle was looking for her, and she was probably going to leave soon. And yes, she left. He died, let me see, March, April. He died in March. I had this near death in May, and my grandmother died in October of the same year. So that's really, I don't want to say interesting, but it's a great experience. And I have to tell you that death, you don't need to be scared of it, because there is a world out there. There's a different world. We don't have the emotions. You know you're sad, you know you're happy, you know maybe upset, something upsets you, and you know that consciously, but you don't feel it. You don't have the physical emotions of being anger or crying, but you know that you're having that emotion. I also realize that when people say they're at peace, you know, they're resting, they're at peace now. It's a wonderful feeling. You know, I've tried to explain it in different words, but there's no word that can explain the feeling of I don't know if it's love, happiness, or just no worries. You don't have the worries. You're not here. You don't have the worries. But you do have are your memories. You know the people that you love. You know the people that you've loved all your lives. You remember that. So when you go into your next life, I always think, you know how when you, I don't know if you've done, but I've done this. I've met someone that I just knew I knew. I've known her for years, but I just met her. You have that connection. That's because in your past life, you were with that person, or you met that person, or that person was significant to you. So that's my experience.
Thank you very much.